All right. Well, welcome back, guys, to the Fly on the Wall podcast. I'm your host, Phil, and other host, Aaron, is over there. Say what's up, Aaron, so your face will pop up.
What's going on? What's going on?
And our last podcast, we ended, Aaron introduced the concept called, correct me if I'm wrong, Kintsugi.
Yeah, Kintsugi. Yeah.
Kintsugi. All right. So basically, how we got there, I'm gonna retrace the steps just a little bit, and then we're gonna let Aaron dive in, and we'll go from there. Actually, hold on. Let me introduce our guest first before we get started.
Right.
Yeah. So go ahead, Dre. Introduce yourself, man.
Hey, how you guys doing? My name's it's Andre Murphy, but Dre for short. And just excited to be on this podcast. Outside of podcasting with these guys as a guest, I'm not doing this regularly. Obviously, invite me back. But outside of that, I do cinematography, video editing, and I'm just excited to be a part of this conversation today.
Yeah, Dre is one of the best guys I know, man. Excited to have his voice on here and to hear some of his perspectives. So
I was about to say, first of all, y'all should have hit me up with the goatee memo. It'll take me a week to get mine ready. Y'all on here with him. But Dre, I've heard a lot of good things about you, man. Aaron kept always was gassing you up. I remember Aaron first introduced you as like my editor. I'm like, you got an editor, bro? Hold on. But so the Kintsugi concept, it was brought about in the conversation, the last one we had a couple weeks ago. We took Easter off, but we were talking with Sam and Cameron, and Sam was basically talking about how we're all made like in the image of God and the likeness of God, but perhaps we have different pieces of God like within us, and the more pieces that get together, like broken pieces of a vase, the more you're able to see the big picture. And then that's when Aaron dropped the Kintsugi bomb on us and said, "I have this interesting concept called, well, that I recently read about called Kintsugi, and it pretty much is." Go ahead.
yeah, so Kintsugi is, man, this Eastern philosophy, right? About seeing the beauty in broken things, right, and just not leaving them there. So it's like it's an appreciation and a respect for broken things, and it transcends just the items which which are actually physically kintsugi, but also applies to a way of seeing life, right? So um, a lot of times, well, hmm, actually, you know what? I'm gonna go into a story that my father used to. My father told one day, and I saw a big narrative gap. Narrative bridge that I think can connect well with the idea of kintsugi. So basically, this is the 1600s, like 1640. And England is having its own civil war, which a lot of people don't know, but England also had a civil war. And, you know, the city of Winchester, in the city of Winchester, there's this cathedral right there. And the war is raging on, raging on. And eventually the war makes its way to the city. And so it's this beautiful cathedral. It's got murals and windows painted and a beautiful decoration. Well, that ends up getting shot up during the process of this war. And so the people in the village, or the city, I rather, they come together and they band and they grab all the shards that seem to be salvageable and they hold on to them. And over the course of the next 19 years, these people hold on to all these shards in hope and in faith that when the war ended, that they could recreate that mural. Well, 19 years later, the war in fact does end, but Parliament looks at the chapel and they say, you know, it was beautiful while it lasted, but there's no use for it now. And so they're going to tear the whole thing down. They're going to raze it to the ground. Um, but the villagers, they say, they say no. We see something worth keeping here. They present the shards, and along with some new clear glass, they actually are able to create a new mural on the windows. Now they can't recreate the old mural, right? That is gone. However, this one creates the one that they create tells a new story, which is defined by that hope, that resilience, that faith. Um, and that I think really encapsulates the idea of kintsugi, behind kintsugi, right? A lot of times we grow up, we're young, and we're idealistic, and we hope that we'll find a way to navigate through life that can keep us from a lot of suffering and pain. Um, but man, life has its own way of dealing with you, right? And everybody kind of comes into contact with that brokenness that life provides. So Kintsugi is about looking at those things and actually seeing that they add appreciation to life. It adds appreciation to life. I didn't even get to talk about the actual process of kintsugi, but more so just the philosophy. The process is when you get some broken pottery or vases or anything like that, you would, you know, gather all the pieces and then use some kind of adhesive material and sprinkling gold and silver dust into it. So it actually refines it and it appreciates in value after its brokenness. And that's the whole philosophy, saying that we're actually better off because of our brokenness in our past and our flaws, rather than having um, the idealistic harmonic experience that we oftentimes envision.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah. Now you. My question was literally what you ended up touching on right after when you said I didn't even get the chance to introduce. Like I was about to ask you, like, kintsugi, is it like a verb, noun, like in terms, because this is not a romance language. You know what I mean? Japanese. So we don't know the prefixes and the suffixes and whatnot. So what is kintsugi? Is it like the noun, or because you talked about the physical thing, like with the pottery, and then you talked about a philosophical. First of all, never mind. We ain't gonna start talking about like Asian
Anime.
culture. I'm not even gonna talk about anime. I was gonna talk about Asian culture, how fire it is, and how poetic
It's
it is.
gas.
It's gas. Like everything is so poetic. But anyway, um, so does it have both like a philosophical context and like this?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think it initially started out that way. Uh, to go back to the etymology of it, it comes from two words: kin, meaning golden, and then sugi, meaning joining. So, I guess to answer your question, it's a noun and a verb. But I think it comes back from. Hold on, I had his name as I was doing some research. Some guy named Ashikawa Yoshimitsu, right? And he might have been an emperor. I can't remember, but he broke some kind of pot, sent it over to China to get repaired, and then they bring it back and it's like stapled together. He's like, "Yo, this looks atrocious." You know what I'm saying? He's like, "Somebody do something with it." So he sends it over to his servants, and they take out the staples, and that's when they come up with the process for the adhesive, and they sprinkle some gold dust in it. And I think it philosophically it ties in with like their whole Zen Buddhism and stuff like that as well.
You mentioned Phil brought up a great question about was it a verb or a noun, as far as was it an action or was it a philosophy, a spiritual context. When did do you know exactly when did they start to turn it from the doing, the actual verb of putting it together to realizing that these broken shards could have represented our lives or the spiritual aspect of it? Does the history talk about that or?
Yeah, there is a tale. Hold on, it's I have it in my notes. I had to take notes on this one, y'all. Okay, so there's like this. I can't exactly remember what exactly it is, but wabi sabi. It's like a. Hold on.
I meant to say wabi sabi, whatever it is, sound hot.
Wasabi, I was like wasabi.
It sound hot.
It looks like wabi sabi is like this worldview. So this is the philosophy part of it, basically talking about focusing on imperfection.
I was thinking about it today because I was, we were obviously going to come on here and talk about Kintsugi today. So I was in church today, and I was, bro. Did you know that Martin Luther screamed on James hard, like Jesus' little brother James? Mm-mm. Martin Luther screamed on him. He was like, he was pretty much saying like the book of James should be like eradicated from the Bible. Yeah, Martin Luther went crazy on James. There's like some quotes out there, and you would like read some of the writings Luther or Martin Luther did on James. And I was like, that's really funny. So like, does the Lutheran church not mess with the book of James? But anyway, in James, it was talking about, James is like a pretty controversial book, but there's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot to unpack there. But pretty much because all of like You know how Romans has like no imperatives in it, like Romans 8 has like no action verbs or anything like that. James is like literally pretty much you get salvation by works. Not really, but like it's like extends the definition of faith, if that makes sense. So versus like for instance, and what my pastor was saying today, he said the hardest demon in hell believes in God. He has faith in God. Like he knows God exists, but the faith is like the faith in itself. Well, he was pretty much saying how faith is like the transformative of like transformation of like heart and soul to where it's not like only the knowledge of it, but the faith in it means like it's transformed to where this is your source of like life, pretty much.
Right.
But so in the book of James, and it was in the first chapter, he's talking and he was saying that find joy like in your trial, or find, you know what I'm saying, things like that. And it was I think that I was thinking about this because I put together a little piece of what Sam was saying, and it almost seems as if like in the you know the big saying like where I'm weak he is strong. But I think in the fragmentation of certain things, it can reveal a larger picture that was once overshadowed by the cohesive picture that existed before. So like once you have this like cohesive idea and it's like this thing, and you get like what's the word I'm looking for, like one
Tunnel
track
vision.
mind, tunnel vision.
Yeah,
You get tunnel vision on this thing, and it's like this thing is this, like it's what I see, it's how I experience it. But like when it's then broken and you only have a fragment of it, it's like, okay, so where does this piece fit into a larger thing? And then it's like the whole potential of the larger thing is now like infinitely more vast given the one single view at it. So like for like when he was talking about the trials, and it's like in this season of life, this one little sectioned off piece to where I'm so like tunnel visioned, it's like this is an opportunity for me to dive into my faith. This is an opportunity for me to lean on God. This is an opportunity for me to focus on Christ. And when those things happen, that small little piece becomes something that's way bigger than you would have ever fathomed, or it becomes like a piece of a way larger component. And it's like given you had the full picture, or like given you were looking at the full picture, you might miss pieces of the full picture because it's well beyond our, I don't know, cognitive
right.
just perception. But yeah.
Right. Phil, that to play off a little bit of what you just said with that, what comes to mind for me when you talked about seeing the bigger picture and seeing the whole picture is sometimes, we go back to the, I definitely believe this is a biblical saying where it says that don't all that glitters is not gold.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the outward appearance, when you look at a vase, let's say you look at a vase or vase or however you want to pronounce it, and and it's whole and it's complete, you don't know, a vase holds things, right? So it could hold treasure, it can hold dirt, it could hold whatever. But you don't know what's on the inside of that. We don't know, it may look pretty on the outside, but it might have snakes up in there. you know um and it's only, I felt like talking about the concept of kintsugi, and as you just said, where you see the whole, but it's only when you can, it's, you look at the pieces that make up the whole that you can kind of see, you get a deeper insight into it. um I feel like it's the same thing where taking that vase example to look at a human being, where their lives are, we may look whole and perfect, not when I say perfect, I mean in the sense of when we think like we have a idea for the future, we have our these are our goals, and this is how we're going to get there, and this is the amount of time we're going to get there, this and the third, and then life shows up and says, okay, that's cool, bro.
You
And
thought.
then you thought, and then pressure's added, and we break, or we're fractured, or we're, in some way, when I say break, not in the sense of we give up and whatever, but we take blows that causes fractures that may cause the actual breaking and fracturing of ourselves, right? And now we have to pick up the pieces, but it's in that fracturing where we get to actually examine those pieces of ourselves. It's where we get to see, okay, well, I didn't know that insecurity was really in me like that. I didn't, I knew that I might, sure, some things I wasn't comfortable with, but I didn't know that insecurity, for example, really led me to do this, that, and the third, or to avoid certain opportunities or circumstances, or maybe it's anger, maybe selfishness, maybe it's even I'm too giving. Like we just get these, we start to see these pieces and we start to see what's in us, and from there, I feel that depending on how we go about the healing process or the putting back together process, we can learn from it and become stronger. Adding that the gold and silver, whatever that gold and silver could be. The gold could be mentors. It could be self-evaluation and understanding. It could be counseling. It definitely could be God. So that just came to me as far as when you were talking about the seeing the whole picture, but yet not realizing the smaller piece that make up the whole.
I love that. That's crazy. Yeah, you're right. Because sometimes I guess it's important to know when to have tunnel vision, like Phil was talking about, but also when to look broadly. And so I think it's interesting that we aren't even made with, we have as much as we we can see the broader picture, but honestly, we are a very limited understanding. And so it's interesting that you're talking about, um, sometimes seeing that whole vase can hinder you from seeing the small pieces. That's interesting, man. Like you'll miss some things that are inside of you because you're looking at this whole piece. But when it's broken, you can really see what's really inside. What makes up this composition, really?
And
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
and also heads up, we have 7 minutes on this one. But also, one thing that I was that really struck a chord with me when Dre was talking, and we were talking about the brokenness, but just from my observation, at least like in my personal journey, like through life, and the seasons where I am fractured or like where I am broken, and they create like I don't know these smaller compensative things that you know what I'm saying, like as individuals, like we will like say if you get your feelings hurt one time really bad when you're a kid and like you have insecurities now, like all of a sudden you have this hard like external shell. But like in our brokenness, I feel like in those experiences where life really breaks you down, I think it separates the brokenness from like the virtuous aspects of your, you know what I'm saying, character. Because I know like in my seasons of brokenness, I've been able to identify like exactly what it is, like how I've been like damaged, and when I identify this thing, like when I can call its name, it's like Dre was saying, when I can say insecurity, I can then separate my insecurity from my love. My love becomes that much more pure because I can identify the insecurity. It's like, so the breaking literally can separate these two things, these two entities, like insecurity and the love. But also, full circle to what Sam was saying, like once like we have all these like these different, and every individual has like different broken pieces to them, but when we get together as whatever sort of conglomerate you desire, but you get them together and it's like all of these different individual pieces of like different people form together to make a more
Yeah,
solid, you know what I'm saying, entity. So
yeah. Uh, like as I'm listening to you saying that, and like talking about the whole conglomerate of the human race, I feel like the narrative of the Bible is very much so based on that. I mean, it's, and I was talking, Phil, to one of our friends yesterday, and we were talking about how like mm, we strive so hard to achieve whatever kind of idealistic lifestyle, publicly and personally, right? And that didn't allow us to leave enough grace for ourselves. We didn't plan out grace for ourselves, so it hits us more when we fall.
mm-hmm.
It was very devastating for us when we
Fail.
You guys,
when we
you don't
fall. Yeah,
allow
when we
yourself.
fall.
You guys didn't allow yourself
Grace, yeah,
your grace, right?
right. So yeah, we didn't budget out grace for ourselves, so it's very devastating for us. But then I started reflecting and meditating on the story of Peter. Like Peter's been on my mind a lot lately, trying to understand him, and I realized that Peter is, one of Jesus's homeboys. You know what I'm saying? He down the ride since day one. I'm talking about dropped his career to go follow Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Immediately. He was the only one who stepped out of the boat when called. Like, he was overzealous down the ride from day one. And yet, Jesus tells him, like, yo, before the sun comes up, like, that's going to be you out here stabbing me in the back, denying that you even know me. You know what I'm saying? And he swears that he would never let that happen.
3 times.
3 times?
Like, you sure you don't know him? Nah.
Yeah. So, anyway, I was sitting over here meditating on that, and I'm like, man, there's a reason why that was like that failure was included in there. You know what I'm saying? I think it spoke out to me because Peter never saw himself doing that. But it's the same Peter who was extremely zealous or whatever, but he had this flaw that God knew, but he didn't see. And yet, this is also the same Peter who was one of the seminal heads of the early church preaching the word and dying on the cross, just like Jesus, dying for Jesus' namesake upside down on the cross. But I feel like the fact that he died the way he did and that he ascended the way he did is made all more important by the fact that he failed that one night and he denied Jesus' name.
Wow.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And for whatever reason, God, the narrator of our lives, the author of this grand plan, he has chosen for us not to walk. I mean, he would desire for us to, live upright in a way worthy of our calling, but he chooses to let us get to know him in our brokenness. That's the main way that we get to know him, through the valley of the shadow of death. You see what I'm saying?
Wow. Yeah. Talking about that, walking through the valley of shadow of death, fear no evil, and just the conversation that you had with your friend about life. It's interesting. Kintsugi is just it's applicable in every area, not only with ourselves, with our, and how the whole
very universal. Yeah,
it's very universal because you even look at just life, the journey of life. It's one continuous thing in the grand scheme when you look at it from top down, right? Birth to death. But at the same time, when you zoom in, you start to see the fractures that happens, the detours, the stops, maybe an avalanche happened right there. You got to turn around or you got to wait. There's breakings in that. And how each of those things, though, accumulate to become that one journey where you got to your final destination, right? You take that from the metaphorical description of life, but you put that even with your goals, your dreams, your even forming habits or breaking habits. Like everything there's the big picture, the whole, but then there's the cracks, the breaking, the fractures, and then having to put it back together when you stumble, when you fall, when you're knocked down, when you're pulled back. And not only just those pieces, but the how does it come back together? How is it placed back together? Is it by your hands? Is it someone else in your life? Is it multiple hands? All of those things tell a story that shape you and mold us into hopefully, a better individual, but sometimes it could be the opposite, what's there could be revealed and it could be something that we can't handle. And maybe we don't have the gold and the silver and the adhesive to piece it back together. And now we just have pieces,
Yeah. Y'all think about a watch, right? Like a very small contraption that can potentially be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars because of the level of detail and artistry going into every single part of it.
That's true.
It's the work behind the scenes that makes the thing valuable. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Same with us. That just hit me. It's the same with us.
Right.
A piece of something you were saying just now, Dre, reminded me of this conversation I was having with one of my boys, Drew, and we were talking, he was asking me, and he said, Drew's, for those who don't know Drew, no one probably will, but it's like one of my boy Drew, and he's this white guy, but he was asking me about, he said, after all the events and everything that happened last year, he said, what now? It seems as if that's like old news. Like, has there been any progress, or like what significance is there behind it? Because Drew was going to the marches and whatnot in New Orleans. He got what was it, mustard gas? Yeah, he got gas. So he was like, he got hit with it. Yeah. So but he's saying, like, what now? And him asking me that question really challenged me. I'm like, and I'm thinking about it like as of from this year, you know, like almost a year out from like when things really got cracking. What have I seen? And Dre, the way you said that reminded me of something I was saying to him, and I spoke to my mom about it later. It's talking about art and how art is like historic. Like when you look through the past and you see art, like art makes you ask those questions. Like it makes you zoom in on the micro lens versus like the macro lens. Like just artistically, well, art's one of the things that does that. A lot of different things do.
Right.
And for our community, very specifically, like the community of like African Americans, I was thinking, I was just chewing on that whole idea, and I was like, you know, I think that hip hop itself, like the genre of music, hip hop itself, is evidence of the '80s in America. It's like evidence of a lot of things that went on that are, you know what I'm saying? We went from dance music to literally NWA making a song called F the Police. Like, where did we went from like Sam Cooke and Otis Redding, Marvin
Right.
Gaye, Harry
Hardwell.
Belafonte, Jerry
Yes,
Butler,
sir.
you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
All
sir.
these guys. And like where did this, like when did we become so angry? And it kind of makes me ask this question. Let me look into it. But then even more so on the other side of that to answer the question that Drew posed to me, I said honestly, I feel more of a connection to my to like more of a connection to like our genuine, like the big, like people think hip hop culture is black culture. Like no, hip hop culture is a subsect within black culture, but I feel a more genuine connection to like the root of like our culture. And I think that like a lot of us are starting to, you see like more film coming out like with non-traditional like black leads and stuff. Like you're seeing a lot of stuff like kind of start to get a little bit away from hip hop culture. Not away from it, but like starting to see these other signs of our culture. And that really um brings to, I don't know, like brings to it, but the hip hop culture adds in this whole new thing to like our already existing culture. So like when you said that, I thought about it, and I'm like, man, I'm seeing now how like the brokenness of, because there was like there's a point from like the like I guess like the late '80s to like even extending to like now to where there's like a whole new era in like Black America, and there's a lot of anger in it, and there's a lot of brokenness in it, and there's a lot of frustration in it, and dealing with these things, I feel like has introduced to not only us, like our community, but to America, a lot of insight into like just, I don't know, like human nature or like just us, like as a people, like the way we all come together. I think it's been very insightful to the point to where I think there are a lot of people looking at a lot of things differently now.
Yeah.
I mean, it was huge, and it came from that brokenness, the necessary evils to, I guess, shine light on different things. But yeah, no, that was it's like I feel like that's like a piece of evidence that I was really chewing on lately that you just like put a rhyme and reason to, or like a yeah definition to.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Appreciate that. That was
there's
good.
yeah, that was powerful. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really in the breaking that opportunity happens across the board. You look at how many, you know, the bad. We look at the bad of the COVID-19, right? But there was so many new things that were created in that opportunity. We look
Mm-hmm.
at, you know, the Great Recession. We look at even, I mean, just in the badness, like genocides. When we find out about those things are happening. Things move. Things shift, and unfortunately, it sometimes take, you know, the the break-in is almost never good in the sense like the event that happens. Like, you know, it's pain, it's fractured, it's whatever, but there can and has always been and will be goodness that comes out of it. You know, it's just a matter though of, are you going to focus and get stuck and on looking at the pieces, or are you going to say, here's the pieces, how can we now make something new with this? What can we get out of these pieces?
I think, yeah, exactly. Oh, wait.
Yeah, no, that was it. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
good.
I was just gonna say that you're exactly right in the fact that it's a matter of looking at that broken piece and not discarding it. That's where it is. That's where it lies. You know, you can look at broken, for instance, the state of the Black community, right? You can say, you know, oh, I see this and unemployment levels and oh, this and that, blah blah, and just expect it to stay the same. You can see, you can think of, you can count it as a lost cause, or you can look at it as something to be you can look for ways to appreciate the value of what is already there.
Right.
Because nothing is beyond restoration.
Right.
You have to see the opportunities for it.
Yeah, man. Nah, that's huge. And I'm just trying to figure out a way to start this idea like fresh. I want to talk about opportunity, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Oh, so I the other day I took a personal day on a Friday afternoon. I took the evening. I had the house to myself, and I was denying plans. I'm like, nah, I'm not going out. Like tonight's going to be field time.
Hey.
And so I was like, like writing and like reading and doing different things. And then I said, I don't know anything about the theory of relativity. Like, let me look up the theory of relativity. So I like watched a few documentaries on it. And it's talking about like how
Hold on, what?
Okay. I thought you were gonna ask, like,
yeah, it just hit me slowly.
That's what we do.
This is what his free time. This is what.
but it's
different level,
binging Netflix.
It's really interesting stuff. I was talking about Einstein and like how he like developed like the theory of relativity. And then I don't. It started me. I'm not gonna sit here and break down the theory of relativity. That's not what's about to happen. So don't worry. but it started to get me to thinking about cosmic purpose, if that makes sense. Yeah. And like, what is I guess like every individual, like we look for some sort of like intrinsic value in our existence. And I was thinking like of all like the matter that exists on Earth, there's only like X amount of matter that is sentient, like that composes like a like life, a living thing. And then even less like than that have like humans, where we have like sentience, like intellect and all these different things. So I was like, literally the opportunity of life itself shows us how important we are to God. The fact that he created us and gave us the opportunity to perceive life. And then when I thought about that, I'm thinking more about it. I'm like, so like opportunity is like a really big deal. Like it's like, that's a big thing. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, all these different, like the every single like external stimuli you experience in life, like everything that happens to you, everything that goes on around you, everything that happens within you too, can be viewed as opportunity. And the finished product, this is back to the Kintsugi thing, but the finished product doesn't present really much opportunity, only like utility for that product. You know what I mean? But the broken pieces highlights like the opportunity. And we've already like covered that, but still I was really thinking about how profound opportunity in itself is. And like once you maximize the idea of opportunity, once you begin to view situations as opportunities, there's such a blessing in that. Yeah. There's such a blessing in that. Like that's a blessing in itself. And I think that's why like God tells us throughout the Bible, like, all things work together for the good of those who love him. And all these different, and like pretty much it seems like Christianity done correctly, you seem invincible. And it's like, well, not necessarily invincibility. Like you still be subject to these different things, but when you realize that all of these different things are just an opportunity for you to grow in faith, to grow in your walk, these troubling circumstances, like when James was saying, find joy in your trial. These trials or these tests or these different circumstances then begin to delight in them. And it's like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to grow here. Like I'm feeling like shame here. Okay, this is an opportunity for me to go ahead and conquer shame. Yeah. Right. Or at least, cause shame's already been conquered, but it's an opportunity for me to tap into that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I mean, Phil, that's very profound, and I think in life, if we really realize, I think we in life a lot of times we define opportunity as this big moment, this big thing, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what we look for. And if the event that happens doesn't meet that expectation of what opportunity should look like, we don't consider it an opportunity. Mm-hmm. But realistically, as you said, every moment that in every moment of our lives, we have the opportunity to be better, to do something different, not even just be better, but to do something different. So, sure, I'm on this health kick and, oh man, I ate this Kit Kat. It doesn't mean my whole day is off. I don't have to go eat candy and fried food, and and even if I ate candy the next time and then I ate fried food for lunch, I have the opportunity the next time I eat for it to be something healthy. We really have the opportunity to do things differently every time that it occurs. I didn't work out today, I'll work out tomorrow. Or I didn't work out this morning, I can get 5 minutes. I can choose to get 5 minutes in here or there, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Yeah.
the reality is we have opportunities every day all around us, and it goes back to, as you said, Phil, we have to change our perspective to
Right.
look at those things as opportunities, and not like, oh, that's just it's just another moment, but that's not an opportunity.
Right. That's actually that's so interesting because I think the ancient Greeks kind of hit on that what you're just talking about. They had two gods that had a relation to time. One of them was Kronos, right, which you've probably
Yeah,
heard
obviously, yeah.
of. The Titan
Wait, hold
Kronos.
on. I was about to say Titan, yeah, but anyway, well, guys, Titan, same thing.
But he had to do with chronological time, right? But then there was this other god that people don't really talk about as much. He was Kairos. He was the god who, he had hair in front of his head, and if he walked past you, that's your opportunity to grab onto it and seize the moment. And I think he might have gave like a wish or something like that. But if he, walked past you, he doesn't have hair on the back of his head. Once that moment passes you, it's over. I think a lot of times we get ourselves in the headspace of thinking that we're waiting on this big moment to come across us, and if we don't seize it, then that's over. That's it. We're spending time focusing on Kairos when really we're living in Chronos. There's opportunities all around. You know what I'm saying? There's plenty of Kairoses all around us. Kairos only exists in Chronos. I mean,
Wow.
metaphorically.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was nice.
That was really nice. That was really nice. That was really nice. And I have some stuff to say. Go ahead.
No, listen, that might be where we need to just
Yeah.
drop the mic and
I was about to say, you want to talk about time, that whole theory of relativity. We can have a discussion off camera about that one.
Because say, oh look, it's a little like it's time to go.
Speaking of time,
being real relative to what I got to do next.
All right, well, I guess that's going to conclude Fly on the Wall for today. Thanks, y'all, for checking us out, staying consistent. Pay attention, new episodes coming every week, just about. We'll have to figure out what we're going to talk about next time. But, if you have an idea, drop it in the comments. We'll check it out for sure. We want to thank our guests. Dre, man, I'm glad to have you on here finally.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. Excellent, man. Y'all give us a like, subscription, all that stuff, man. Continue to stay tuned. And that's going to be it for us.